I am standing in one of my favorite places in all of Israel, Bethlehem. Behind me is the shepherd's field. Who would have dreamt that the provision to preserve the hope of all mankind would come from here, a feeding trough in a dark cave? But this is the place where Jesus was born. And who would have thought that 1,500 years earlier, the provision of hope would come through a handcrafted cradle coated with tar? In Exodus, we read the story of the women who delivered a deliverer. These women summoned the courage to stand up against Egypt's all-powerful sovereign ruler at the risk of their own lives. Let's read their story today in Exodus chapter 1.
The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, "When you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live." The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: "Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live." Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water."
Girls, I cannot imagine what it must have been like for Moses' mother to place a 3-month-old baby in a basket and place it in the Nile River, or what it must have felt like for the mother of Jesus to give birth in this place. These women lived ordinary lives, but they dared extraordinary things. Girls, our everyday ordinary moments can become platforms for the miraculous when we choose obedience.
Looking out over the shepherd's field in Bethlehem, one word kept resonating in my spirit: hope. It was here that David patiently tended sheep until God anointed him for divine purpose. It was here that shepherds carefully guarded their flocks until God announced the birth of a Savior through angelic messengers. And it was here that a young girl named Mary delivered a baby in a nearby cave. In seemingly ordinary moments, or just when things seem the darkest, God breathes hope. Mary placed her hope in a feeding trough in Bethlehem, just as thousands of years earlier, Jochebed placed her hope in a papyrus basket in Egypt. But these women truly placed their hope in God. As Jochebed sent Moses in the Nile, the enemy's tool for destruction became God's instrument for preservation. Our ordinary moments become extraordinary when we put our hope in the Lord. Perhaps you're walking through a season of uncertainty with more questions than answers. As we study the women who delivered a deliverer, trust that God has the final say in your situation. These fearless women will help us discover this important truth: God can preserve our hope.